Hello everybody, I'm Colin D. Ellis and welcome to the Culture and Coffee podcast, where every episode I discuss a new topic of workplace culture and provide some insights and some practical things for you to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe and to share with people who you may think would be interested. Okay, let's get on with today's episode. Hello everybody, it's Colin here. Welcome to another episode of the Culture and Coffee podcast. Today's coffee, there's the beans for extra sound effect, is a kind of coffee from Yaga in Kenya. It's got notes of raspberry and grapefruit with lime brightness. I don't know what lime brightness is, but sounds fancy, doesn't it? Fancy Melbourne coffee. And very nice it is too. It's from Bench Coffee here in Melbourne. And today I'm talking about purpose. Now I'm sure that coffee is grown with purpose. I'm sure it is. But in terms of purpose and how it relates to workplace culture, slightly different, but the two are connected. If you're going to grow coffee with purpose, then when people are helping you or are working with you to help you grow that coffee with purpose, they need to feel a sense of purpose themselves if you want engagement. And it's one of those things, like many things in culture, that's often misunderstood, it's often overlooked, is what is that connection between these things that we do, purpose, vision, mission, and the actual feelings that it generates within employees, such that they want to be productive, they want to do their job. So engagement is a kind of connection and the sense of purpose that drives people or employees to invest more of their personal time, their personal energy into their work. All right. So it's really important that you have that purpose. And what we do as individuals is we very much connect with the purpose that the organization demonstrates, its goals, its aspirations. And then we can see a role for ourselves as employees in being part of that, in helping the organization to do that. And consequently, we get not only satisfaction from that and not only engagement for the company, which is good for the company, but also for ourselves. We're like, I'm investing my time and effort into doing this because I can see what it gives me at the end of it. So it's not just about the company. And this is why purpose is so important. We never used to talk about it. It wasn't really a thing, but it was always there. It was always there. It was in the strategy that the organization pursued, the operations that are really kind of generating momentum. And purpose, when done well, really speaks to what the organization is about and the good that it's doing in the world. And when I look at the best workplace cultures around the world, for me, they very much have the human at the center of it, which sounds a bit fluffy, and it's deliberately meant to, because obviously organizations are a product of the people that work for them. Without the people, the organization would be nothing. And I know we're years away from robots and AI and all of these kinds of things, but we still need people to work the machines, right? You look at the most innovative manufacturing plants, places like Toyota, they still need people to program the machines to build those cars. So they have the human at the center. And those people are driven by purpose. They're driven by individual purpose and working towards the organization's purpose. But purpose, like everything else, has just become this thing that we say rather than a practice, rather than tactics that we put into practice on a day-to-day basis. And this is the challenge for organizations, is turning this often badly written statement into engagement and motivation such that it drives people forward. And the stats aren't great. So there was a survey done recently, 1,000 people in US companies. 82% of those who were interviewed affirmed the importance of purpose, but only 42% said their company's purpose had much effect on them and or their day-to-day activity. And therein lies the problem. Because if you're going to make a statement about the good that you're aiming to do in the country, the world, the sector, whatever your purpose might be, but then you don't actually translate that into meaningful action, then all it's going to do is generate disengagement. All it's going to do is separate people from the work that they do for the organization that they're working with. And eventually what they'll do is they'll go and find someone else who's actually living their purpose. This is how important it is these days. You know, I've said in the podcast in the past is that millennials and Gen Z view purpose as much as pay. Still want to get paid, but they view purpose as important. And they want to know that organizations, when they make these statements, particularly senior leaders, particularly when they're in their annual reports around these are the things that we stand for, that they actually do. And when organizations take action that run counter to their purpose, then that's where we have a problem. Now, in the past, what we used to do as employees is just kind of go, what are they like? God, typical. You know, back in the day when I was employed in Liverpool, what are they like? What are they like, these lads, eh? They say one thing and they do another. It's terrible. But now what we do is we're kind of uniting as employees. And, we're forming groups and actually protesting against organizations. We've seen this so many times over the last few years. And I've talked about this in my new book, in Detox Your Culture, is this rise of employee activism. We see it on websites such as Glassdoor, who, what they do is they get reviews from people's workplaces. And, interestingly, I was speaking to someone in London a couple of weeks ago. And we were talking about Glassdoor. It was a journalist, and we were talking about Glassdoor. And she said, "Oh yeah, me and my friends are always on Glassdoor looking at organizational scores." I still think there's some leaders thinking that it's not going to happen to them, but it totally is. Is that people are looking at those scores? But employee activism, places like Google, Amazon, they've seen it recently. I think for me, and I wrote about this in the book. The one that really was a demonstration of how purpose has changed was 37 Signals. Now, 37 Signals are a technology company. I think they're a technology company. They make a tool called Basecamp. It's a project management tool. And they've got a great culture, and the owners they had a great culture, and the owners have written books in the past about culture, and they're good. They're good books. I've always recommended them to people. They're simple, they're well written, they're not academically written. A lot of the stuff in my space, not the stuff, there you go, as if academics would say that. A lot of the words reproduced in my space, they're all written by academics, people who haven't really kind of worked at the coalface for 20, 30 years. That sounds terrible. If you're academic, please don't take offense at that. You know what I mean, though? Like, your job is to study stuff. And I get there are some toxic cultures within academia. In fact, there are more than a couple. I know that. Anyway, but where am I going with this? Anyway, the books that the owners wrote, Jason Fried and David Hanmeyer Hansen, were just simple, basic, easy to follow. The kind of books that, I write and I like to read. Here's some basic stuff that you can do. However, one of the principles behind their business was kind of this concept of free speech. And what they wanted was for staff to engage in lively conversation, engage in lively debate, because they felt that was good for culture, and it is. However, in 2021, they banned talk of politics because of the divisive nature of politics in the US. They banned talk of politics on the internal Slack channels, I think it was, or chat channels. And that was seen by employees as a betrayal. They basically said, well, hang on a minute, this is not our purpose. This is not what we're about. And they lost a third of their work staff, a third of their employees in about a month. A third. Just imagine losing a third of your employees. And most of them, as Jason Fried said later in an interview, they're people they wanted to keep. Listen, every organization has got a bunch of employees that they're quite happy to lose. Hopefully you're not one of them. Not that they would ever tell you. And he said they're people that we wanted to keep, people who we really, wanted to help us push us forward. And so that's an example of where purpose generates toxicity. is that when you take actions that run counter to what you stand for, then it can generate toxicity. But purpose should, let's look at the positive, is it should shape culture. And again, I wrote about this in Detox Your Culture, is the way that purpose shapes culture, is you have a purpose statement and then everything lines up to that in the same way that it does a vision. So here's some good examples of a purpose statement. So Campbell's Soup is connecting people through the food they love. So if you want to work in a business that very much lives and breathes and eats, kind of what it's about, then Campbell's Soups is the place for you, connecting people through the food they love. They put their purpose, they put food right at the heart of everything that they do. Foot Locker, to inspire and empower youth culture. It's got nothing to do with shoes. I love that. I love it when a purpose doesn't really speak to the thing that they actually do. Foot Locker, if you're not aware of them, they sell sneakers. That's what they do, and other sports equipment. But their purpose is to inspire and empower youth culture. And so what that does, and then how that shapes culture, that's a great example, actually, I'm going to use that one. Actually, let me give you a couple more purpose statements, and I'll come back to. These are the ones that are good. Most are rubbish. Most people's purpose statements are rubbish. They really are. But then what they do is they either do it themselves, which you should never do that. It's like pulling your own teeth. You're not a dentist. If you've got a toothache, you go and see a specialist. Or what they do is they hire some very expensive consultant. So they get 6 dentists to work on their mouth at the same time. Don't know where I'm going with that analogy. It's far too early in the morning for me to be talking about dentists. Anyway, some more great examples. Southwest Airlines, connect people to what's important in their lives, very important, through friendly, reliable, and low-cost air travel. All right. So again, the air travel is mentioned at the end, but it's about lives. Target, to help all families discover the joy of everyday life. Again, not talking about cheap stuff in the store. But let's come back to Foot Locker, to inspire and empower youth culture. When you have a purpose that says that, then what you want to do is make that as a basis for decision making, even for things like marketing and branding, but also for hiring as well. What kind of culture are we looking to create to line up to that purpose? And of course, culture is very deliberate. So you need to make sure that you're involving people in that. So if I'm working with Foot Locker on their culture, I'm thinking about how I tailor my content, because the 6 pillars of culture still, kind of are present. So things like values and behavior and collaboration and innovation and personality and communication, right? But I'm thinking, how do I tailor that in a way that lines up to the vision to inspire and empower youth culture? This is a bit of my job I absolutely love, because what I will do is I'll create an experience that's very much tied to youth culture. So I will go away and research about youth culture. What does youth culture look like? And what does the brand look like? The work that I did with Red Bull, giving wings to people and ideas, just a fabulous organization. But I really thought about, how do we tailor the content that means something to people in their context, so that when they go away, and which is what the general managers did, they went away and they built cultures, vibrant cultures within their countries, in line with Red Bull's purpose, its values, its philosophies. And that's when you do purpose well, that's where it really, really shapes kind of the culture that you work in, giving wings to people and ideas. How does that shape the day-to-day experience of staff? Because when they can see the work that you're doing, the decisions that you're making is also about giving wings to people and ideas, or is to help inspire and empower youth culture, then then people are engaged. They're like, this is what I expected. This is what they talked about in the interview. This is where my values come to the fore. This is where my sense of purpose can contribute to their sense of purpose. There's that distinct alignment, and people want to go the extra mile. They want to do the work. They want to be involved in it. They want to contribute to it. They want to grow it. And what you then get are what I would call these kind of vivid signals. They project outwards. When people have a sense of purpose, they feel connected to an organization that has got a really clear sense of purpose, then there's this projection. And it comes out in many different ways. I'm reading reading one of my friends' books at the minute called Energy. So Lisa O'Neill, book on energy, the most energetic person I know, fabulous human being. It's brilliant. And it talks about energy and it talks about the work. And I always think that if you're doing work that's purpose-driven for a purpose-driven organization, you project outwards, it's energy and passion. And so often people will say, oh, how do I make people more passionate about my job? I'm like, well, have a look at what you stand for as an organization. You've got to start there. And people never think to start there. They always think it's down to intrinsic motivation, which of course it partly is. But actually, if we've got a really strong purpose statement that excites people, and it doesn't take too long to do these things, I always think that the leadership team has responsibility for a purpose statement. It takes generally about half a day of me working with the executive team to come up with a really strong purpose statement. We're not cutting pictures out of magazines either. It's so 1990s. That when you have that, then it's very easy. It's much easier for an employee to connect their own sense of purpose to that of the organization. And then they project that out. And then what they do is they have that real sense of possibility of what they're capable of, which is better than the flip side. And the flip side is when purpose is misunderstood, or when purpose isn't clear, or when purpose is compromised. Not only does the business make kind of suboptimal decisions, it just drains productivity and it drains engagement, and it leads to this sense of, well, what are we all about? What are we doing here? Which is not what you want. You want purpose to be the real driver of your business. As I wrote about in Culture Fix, purpose is the heart. Purpose and vision lie at the heart of your culture. And so if you have no heart, don't expect kind of all the bits of the body to work in the way that you expect, such that you produce the results that are required to maintain that sense of business purpose and continuity. So I think just to sum up, purpose is a demonstration of your aspiration. It sits at the heart of your culture. It provides the basis for decision making. And employees are increasingly looking at purpose as a demonstration of intent. Remember, for children coming into the workforce now, they've been told that they can achieve pretty much everything that they want in life, which is the right way to bring your kids up. Of course it is. Not the way that I was brought up, told I could do nothing. We want our kids to believe that. We're telling our kids to find places that match their sense of purpose and their values. So it's crucially important now that organizations, look at the way of the world and say, right, well, how do we create a purpose statement that will give us the best chance of creating a vibrant culture through which everybody can succeed? Purpose is not something that gets abandoned when the going gets tough. Purpose is a commitment. It's a commitment to the world of the good that you're going to do, and it's a commitment to your employees that you're going to do right by them as well. All right, that's it for your Culture and Coffee podcast. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Ta-ra for now. Thanks for listening to today's podcast. If you'd like to find out more about how I can help you transform the culture of your team, head to my website at www.colindellis.com.